Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another OSR Tabletop live stream with myself, Richard D.M. Bloodworth of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. And I, of course, welcome everyone that is going to log in. I know it takes usually a couple of minutes for everybody to start jumping in, but I already see that Elle is here, and Elle has been here for, quite a bit. So let's see some of the comments that he has already put up before I actually jump right into tonight's discussion. And you're certainly welcome to participate and actually join right in on the panel. I already put the link up there. It is pinned, so you'll be able to jump in. And then periodically I'll throw the link in there just as a reminder that you are welcome to join in the conversation. So let's see. Japan is getting ready to release Radiant Citadel for D&D localized on the 10th. So that would be tomorrow. Although considering their time zone, it's probably already now. Boy, is that going to be a flop hard. It is the Japanese D&D YT channel. And as kids call it, cringe. Radiant Citadel authors should be gatekept. All right, so that was his thing. Yes, they should be kept out, and that's of course one of our one of my discussion topics for tonight is the topic of gatekeeping, and as well as safety tools and X cards and such. And I know that you've probably seen and heard this. It seems to go on a 3 to 4 month cycle that it comes up. And I started thinking about the two, and I'm about to jump right into my, I'm about to jump right into my premise for this video or this live stream. So here we go. Let's just go with my first banner. And so are safety tools and gatekeeping the two sides of the same coin? And so this is my argument. This is my thesis, is that the two are components on the, on opposite sides of the same coin. In other words, if you're going to be a big advocate for safety tools, then you should also be, in order to be intellectually honest here, pro gatekeeping as well, because they really are a combination of the same thing. Safety tools is designed to, at least my understanding of it, is designed to make people feel like they are safe at the table, and gatekeeping is really meant to, to be designed that to allow for the people at your table to feel safe from outsiders coming in with the different ideas of what is role playing, or different ideas of how you should run your game, different ideas of how the other players at the table should interact. And so, I really started to, think about this over the last couple of days, and I was like, there really is no difference between the two. And I will, of course, go into a little bit more detail for each and the way that I look at them. And then I obviously will allow you to chime in as well. You're welcome to either jump directly in and have a discussion, or I will be responding to your comments along the way. All right, so let's see. Now you don't have to remember whose stream and can focus on time. Now you don't have to remember when we stream, can focus. I'm sorry, Elle. I'm not the greatest at piecing together these things. So please feel free to retype that in so I get it. Sorry. Gatekeeping is what I do to people that insist on safety tools. Yeah, and again, it's a, let me start off with this. I do not consider session 0 to be a safety tool. Um, Being that the way I utilize it is session zero for me is for me to tell players that this is the game that I'm running, the game system I am running. This is the main theme of it or genre of that game system, in case they're not aware of it. These are the rules that I'm using. These are the rules that I'm modifying. So I give them kind of a general overview of the rules that I'll be using at the table, including homebrews if there are any. I'll give them a general sense, like a movie rating, like this is essentially PG-13, and I virtually don't run anything else but I put PG-13 there, right? Now, each one of these things is, believe it or not, it is gatekeeping in a sense, because when an outsider is looking at your table and they're reading over, like, this is what the game you're running, that very first thing is what game system I'm running. That's gatekeeping, because there are certain games out there that I and others won't play. It's also gatekeeping that it's saying or enticing people to come in if that's specifically the game that they're looking for, right? So it kind of works both ways. It's both a safety tool as far as what it's going to pull in and say, hey, you're welcome here because I'm running AD&D first edition. That is likewise going to keep some others out because I'm running AD&D first edition. So it works both ways, and that's why I basically say these safety tools are what many like to consider a safety tool. And again, I don't consider session zero a safety tool. It is going to do both things. It's going to attract some people in. It'll have, I use the U.S. history term of like immigration, right? It's got both push and pull factors, right? It's going to pull people in to your table. It's going to push others away, and that's not negative. It's not meant to be a negative. Just because you're saying that certain play styles and certain player behaviors are not going to be welcome at this table, you can do it in a way where you preempt having to actually tell them that. You're just presenting it in the card that's kind of like the elevator pitch for your gaming table, and that will keep them away in its own right. So let's see. Well, safety tools, people want to gatekeep white males from the hobby, but yeah, safety tools don't do that though. Gatekeeping does that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and that's why I'm saying is that they can't say, well, my safety tool is not gatekeeping. No, your safety tool, what you believe is keeping your players at your table safe, is likewise a gatekeeping method, and so they're both one and the same. But when you get into that kind of a context on places like Twitter or even Facebook or such, or probably some Discord servers, when you start saying, listen, they're one and the same, it's like you cannot be pro safety tools and anti gatekeeping and be intellectually honest about that. I don't think that you can be. Again, my opinion, but that's where I think it really lies is the fact that now you can't say I just want one and not the other. They're both at play. All right. Initially, when you're doing that session zero, you're doing that push pull factor, and then as you're running your game, when you start discovering, because they're not always straight up front with their play style, let's say, or their personality at your table, it takes a couple sessions sometimes to see how players are going to interact with one another. Sometimes it takes a long time. I mean, I've had it go something close to like 10 weeks before one of my players really started to exhibit this like toxic spotlight type of gameplay that he was looking for. He always wanted his character to be in the spotlight, and that wasn't evident for the first, like I said, 8 or 9 weeks. It started to show he started to show his face, and then it was rapid. It was like, holy cow, this went, this went south fast. And within 2 weeks after exhibiting those first signs of it, he was gone. And I didn't actually have to kick him from the table. It was just that when he stated he was leaving, no one, including myself, was like, "Oh no, please stay." No, it was like, "Fine, I respect your decision. Have a good luck finding a new game to go to," and that's where it was left. So it was never prompting a person not to remain, or kicking them out. Even worse, it was just not when they said, I think I should go. Okay, bye. Good luck to you, kind of thing. So that is gatekeeping in my mind. That's gatekeeping to the best that you can actually pull it off, because it's non-confrontational gatekeeping, which I did a video about 2 weeks ago, or a live stream about 2 weeks ago, talking specifically about that. Let me get caught up on the comments, because I can see that they're coming fast. All right. I think the difference is gatekeeping is something that the hobby as a whole needs to do, versus safety tools are for small groups, and that's a possibility too. Again, the safety tools, I think, is not even, I think that personally, I think it's such a small segment of individuals who need these things that are coming into the hobby. I don't believe it happens as often as the hobby would like for it to portray it as. Like, I don't think that there are that many people. You could probably count them in maybe the dozens of the tens of thousands of players that are so afraid of spiders that they can't run, Demon Queen of the Web's Pit, of the web pits. It's just not. I don't think that there's that many people in the hobby that actually suffer from that, extreme arachnophobia, where even the imaginary spider makes them incapable of playing the game. I think it is such a tiny, 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 small percentage that it's really not worthy of all of the angst that the issue of safety tools and or gatekeeping actually brings up. In my opinion, it really does put a taint on the hobby, to say that the hobby itself is suffering these effects. All right. There's a problem with the hobby, because there isn't universal acceptance of safety tools, or that there is at the same time gatekeeping taking place. I don't think that there's a genuine occurrence of either taking place. So let's say we fundamentally right to associate with people with whom we like. Yeah, and you know what? It's here's a story. I think it has a correlation. So when I first went to basic training in 1990, U.S. Army, we were divided initially by what state we were coming from. That was just the way we were bussed in and such. And we were initially going to be grouped when we were in actually pre-basic training. We had about 2 weeks of time before the basic training cycle was about to begin, in the late summer of in the summer of 1990. There was a lot going on. Obviously, we were just about to enter Desert Shield, and so there was a build up at the time, and the training cycles weren't all sorted out. But anyway, we were so we were first separated by state, and that kind of made sense logistically. Then at one point we were going into the mess hall, and it wasn't the first time we were going into the mess hall, and this is after basic training had begun, and many of us were still sitting in our state, state seating kind of. So we were still segregating ourselves based on state, because that's what we were used to from the previous 2 weeks or so. And the drill sergeants started, coming through, and they started noticing, a pattern, I guess, or whatever. And they started breaking up tables, because they were in many cases racially segregated. And again, it wasn't a thing that was done overtly. It was done just because some states just don't have that many, either blacks or Hispanics or Asians for that matter. And so they, were looking at this table, let's say from Iowa, and it was 12, 15 guys, all white guys. And then they would look at New York, which had a much larger, let's say, African American representation, and they started breaking up these tables and mixing them up and everything. You couldn't have an all white or an all black or an all Asian table, and everyone had to be mixed up. And what we started saying was, or at least I did, I was a little bit older, I was 23 years old at the time, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, by identifying this, you're making it something that it wasn't, and you're correcting something that was organic and not intentional. And so when you're fabricating an issue, a problem that didn't exist, that's just as bad as ignoring a problem that does exist. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and I think that's where the hobby kind of stands now. It's like when you had a couple weeks ago, like Ginny D came out and she had this thing, was like, well, I'm not going to say that everyone who doesn't use safety tools are assholes and Nazis, or whatever she said. But that implies that if they're not using them, that some are. And so it was just a bad way to put it out there, and to say it. And maybe she honestly believes that, but she was trying to cover her tracks, not to. And then the response to, her was likewise, just pointing out what she had said and why it was wrong, and it wasn't picked up that way. And then those people were called gatekeepers, as if that's something that is bad. And so that's what I'm trying to address here. They're both the same thing, in my mind. An enforcement of safety tools is on par, very, very similar to gatekeeping. And if you're going to, approve of one, then you should approve of both, if you're intellectually honest. Let me continue on. So 2 coins. Gatekeeping prevents heavy RP and heavy tactics players from being in games that they would not enjoy. Gatekeeping prevents heavy RP. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that gatekeeping prevents heavy RP. You could have gatekeeping in saying that, if you don't RP, you can't sit here. So no, I don't think that one. I don't think that one invites a certain play style that the other doesn't, and vice versa, right? So I don't think that you're going to have more role play in a safety tools table than you do having, you won't have less role play at a gatekept table. So gatekeeping, again, is a way to produce the environment at your table that you're looking for. And I do have a banner that I'm going to bring up the next prompt, but let me get caught up with the talking here. Personally, I would not play an RPG with individuals that insist upon safety tools. Yeah, and that's the key, I think, is the insistence upon. It's very much like the whole pronoun thing. So yeah, there was a recent video that this guy from a computer gaming thing, the new Bethesda Star, whatever it's called. It's not Starfinder. It's something else. It's some RPG set in space thing, and he was like, pronouns, fucking pronouns. He went crazy, over the fact that in the very beginning you were asked what is the pronoun of your character, and quite I mean, he certainly did blow his top over it, and became quite unhinged during it. But if it was, and then some people pushed back on that, but in a more sensible way. They were like, it's in the very beginning of the game, and if it's just something that is in the very first few moments of the game where you have to select a pronoun for your character, but it really doesn't become something that's being imposed upon you throughout the gameplay. Remember, this is a solo gameplay. Then it's not insisted upon thereafter. You can kind of ignore it. But if you have people at your table that are imposing these pronouns which don't necessarily match with how they present, or you have these ones where their pronoun is ever shifting, and it becomes an issue where they keep on correcting the other players at the table, well, no, that's not my pronoun in this moment, or you mispronounced me or misgendered me or whatever. That becomes the kind of thing that you need to gatekeep. And it's not a bad thing to do that because it is disruptive to the play, and one of my prompts, I mean, I'll bring it up real quick. One of my next prompts was this here: should the game master have an X card to stop player actions at the table? All right, so if a player is bringing these kinds of things to your table, where do people stand on the idea that the GM can have an X card? Where do these people that are such proponents for players holding an X card, where do they stand on the GM having an X card and saying, nope, we're not going to, we're not going to skip over this? Can they use an X card to cancel out another X card? And should they be able to? Now I already see one of L's things that we don't need it, but I'll get to it. I'll get to that in a second. Let me get caught up with some of these things here. Yeah, Starfield is the name of the game. Let me see where I left off. I am sorry. I fell behind. So let's see. Let me just jump here. When did session 0 take a meaning of discussing safety concerns? Fairly recently, to be honest with you, Paul, and welcome, a new name. So very recently, I would say sometime between 20, like around 2020, I guess, or maybe 1920, somewhere in there. Because we never called session 0. Certainly not back in the day, when I'm talking about, early, the first 2 decades of role playing. I don't know when session 0 became a thing, being labeled that, being called that. We might have done it. We might have actually told people, mostly at conventions, or mostly at, your local gaming shops, that, oh, this is the game that I'm running. Let's roll up your characters. That's a session 0 in its most simplest form, right? When it became a time to start exchanging that, that silly, here's my list of things that I'm comfortable with and not comfortable with. Those consent forms. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. To me, that would be gate kept from my table instantly, because it means that that individual player feels that that's a player action that I don't want at my table, because it sends the message that that player believes that um, they can guide my table away from what I'm looking to do, how I'm looking to run my table. And anyone's welcome to sit at my table, but you're not welcome to change my table. Not to that extent, and certainly not against the wishes of any other player at the table as well. It would have to be the majority at the table asking for something before I would make a change. And if it's something significant enough, I might actually say, maybe this is just not the right game for all of you, and I'll restart from scratch with another group of players. So let's see. L answers that session 0 isn't about social contract or safety tools. It's used to discuss the game and make the character so that GM can lay out the house rules. Yeah, and that's exactly how I look at it. But it's also, you could consider it a tool to inform the players of whether or not this is the table that they want to sit at. And again, it's a push-pull. You're going to pull players to the game system that you're looking to run, and maybe even the rule sets that you're looking to run. And you're going to keep other players that don't want those things away. So it does both as well. So it's not simply just, everyone come here, sit down, and this is, this is the game, and we're going to make up characters and go through there. Some of the rules, or some of the tone of the game is going to get laid out there as well. So I pretty much agree with you, Al. But I would think that there's a little bit more nuance in there as well. That's why I'm asking. It's just not allowing that guy to derail your game. Gatekeeping. Well, yes. If a player is coming to your table and that player is going to disrupt your table, that is that guy that you want to gatekeep from your table. If they're going to derail your game, that is not just understandable gatekeeping. It's required gatekeeping. You don't want to let one player just totally disrupt your entire table. Some game systems, it takes a long time to get a table put together, and you might pick up a good head of steam with a group of players for a considerable time, and then for whatever reason you let a new player come in, and if that new player comes in to look to change what you might have been running for weeks or months or even longer, it's going to be very questionable, just allowing somebody new to come into that situation to begin with, and they're going to have to be a great fit to come into that place. And a lot of times those players will express, because I have a player who didn't want to come into my AD&D campaign because he felt that I don't want to step into something that you've been running for nearly 2 years and change things. So let me know when you start a whole new campaign, and then I will come in. All right, and once I did start my Castles and Crusades campaign, he joined that group and he's fine. All right, I had another player who joined about a year into my AD&D campaign, and he settled right in and just went with the flow. He never really expressed any discomfort about joining the group, and worried about I might unbalance things or whatever. He kind of just segued right into the play and has been there for over a year himself now. So, yeah, not allowing that guy to derail. I think the key word there is derail. You want to eliminate anyone very, very quickly who is going to derail what you have going on at your table. Let's see. If it is at its, I'm sorry. If it is, it's the best because it is much less intrusive than safety tools. Um, yeah, like a very non-confrontational, nuanced gatekeeping is less intrusive than safety tools. I agree with that. Safety tools and X cards exist for public games so people can gain attention. Yeah, I mean, there might be a negative thing to it. It's a virtual single as well. Let's be honest. It's a way to say, oh no, I employ safety tools. You'll be welcome at my table. And that implies that anyone else's table that does not expressly state that they're using safety tools is by virtue not a welcoming table. And that's not the case, right? And that was the problem with Jenny D's comment when she said, in Twitter, I'm not saying that all people who refuse to use safety tools are assholes, but, and then the implication is laid out anyway. When did session 0 take on the meaning of discussing safety? Oh, I did that one already. He's answering it possibly. Only use session 0 during the World of Darkness games to set up why your centuries-old character was involved in the setting. All right. And again, it doesn't have that same meaning now, though, Paul. That has changed since probably 2019 going forward. Like I said, we've had session zeros going back, way, way back, decades, but we never called it that. So that's really what I think most of us are talking about here is when did it take on that new meaning of this is when we're going to utilize it for the purpose of safety tools, especially like accepting consent forms, which is, again, it's just bizarre that would come up. Table rules are no real world politics or religion and no sexual explicitly content. Fade to black. I don't need a session to explain that. Right. And you generally don't. I mean, especially if you're, especially if you don't, if you're running a table for adults, and I always make this distinction too. This is why when I run my games, I run them generally PG-13. I don't run my games for young kids. All right. So everyone is older than 13 minimally. And for the most part, the players that come to my table are 18 and above. And the majority are like 30 and above. All right. If I have to construct safety tools and utilize safety tools for PG-13 content for an adult, that adult is not ready for the table, maybe not even ready for the hobby. All right. Go fix your problems and then come back. All right. And then, because I'm not going to alter PG-13 content for a 45-year-old. It's not something that I think safety tool is meant to address. That's a much more difficult issue to address than just a safety tool. And yes, I would X card that kind of an action. I would say, no, we're not fading to black. We're not turning back time. We're not doing this. We're not skipping over anything. This is the content that is being crafted, by the players at the table. And it's, I, as the game master, I am really most of the time just responding to or reacting to the decisions that my players are making. So it's going to keep on rolling that way. So if one player is having an issue, the rest of the table is already determined that this is the direction it's going in. So hang in for the ride or take a quick bathroom break and then come back and we'll fill you in where everything went. But we're not going to stop the action or skip over any content to address that issue. Let's see. Let's see. Around 2012, was it that early? Really, 2012 when it took that new meaning. I think it's a little bit early. I know that's when like Gamergate and that kind of thing was hitting, was 2012, but I don't think that safety tools were necessarily coming in at the same time. Not in the tabletop role playing hobby. Remember, Gamergate started off with video games first before it started tainting our hobby. Yeah, as a player, I wouldn't play at this table where it says the GM says no elves or gnomes or thieves, right? If I were at a table, I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons or something, and they were saying I'm not going to have these particular things. Not that I would ever play a gnome or rarely play elves. I'll play a lot of thieves. This is gatekeeping to me because this is sending the message, but it's not covert. I mean, it's not overtly gatekeeping. It's covertly gatekeeping. It's doing it by allowing, and I don't know the actual term for it when it's there's a psychological term for it when you make the person believe that they're making the choice on their own, but really you're forcing them, not to join, but they still feel like they are the ones that made that decision, right? I forget. There's a term for that. Good evening, Dean Powell. Good to see you. And let's see. I do that in an email in advance. All right. Let's see what else we have here. Not met someone without an email. I have actually. Believe it or not, I've met some people that were teachers, in fact, with over 25, 30 years in the classroom that were completely computer illiterate and not ready to do everything they need to do on their own to retire. So it was like, how do you function without all of this stuff? I was like, well, you need an email. You have to create one in order to do a lot of this stuff. So yeah, I don't know how people can function without internet. Really don't. But where do you live, the Ozarks? Yeah, no, believe it or not, I've come across people like this in New York City. So it's not that Starfield. Thank you, Paul. Although you almost wrote it like Satire Field, which it might be as well. So I don't think I know it's not Fallout 4. It is Starfield. Um, I don't recall Fallout 4 did not. I mean, it's been a while since I've actually launched that, started it up. The Fallout 4 did not ask for pronouns. I'm almost certain of it, but I'll double check. I'll fire that thing up to see if they ask for pronouns for the characters, but I don't believe it is. Let's see, Arizona from Heels versus Babyface. Yes, that was the video I was bringing up. He blew it out of proportion. AZ yelling at the game is why people watch him. Yeah, that was the one that I was bringing up when I mean, he really did blow a gasket, and it's a, and then he went to actually play the game anyway, so it made no difference. It was like, I'm sure it wasn't that disturbing to you, but Yeah, Razor Fist might have brought it up as well. I haven't watched Razor Fist in quite some time, probably over a year. So not too sure. There's too many websites out there that I followed or follow, and I just can't, you know, can't keep up with them all. Oh wait, I was like, it just was. It wasn't just the pronouns. It was when he correctly predicted a character was about to reveal that they were trans, that he lost it and then had the rant. Okay. And again, it's I don't know if Starfield is a single player game or not, but you can largely ignore that in single player games. And a video game in general too, you can pretty much ignore all of that stuff. I mean, it used to be a bigger issue when players in massively multiplayer online games, right? So it was always like you could always predict that you know the hot female character was being played by a guy, all right, who was just going to get treated differently because he had a female avatar, and people were going to assume that it was a female and then start giving her extra little things and stuff and help and all kinds of stuff. And then it turned out that it was it was a guy behind the avatar. And then I've played with plenty of women in massively multiplayer online games, and they said, "Oh no, I personally wouldn't make a female avatar character because I don't want to be treated differently." Um, so it really depends on the game's internal community standards. And some games have terrible community standards and they love it that way. And others have hypersensitive community standards. Another great example of that, Lord of the Rings Online. Go into Lord of the Rings Online and name your character anything that is outside of what would be expected in the Lord of the Rings setting or in a fantasy setting or whatever. Um, if you want to get kicked off a server fast, name your character Luke Skywalker, and not just because it's a copywritten name, it just doesn't match the genre, and you will get kicked from and not just kicked from an RP server. You'll get kicked from any server in there if you're naming your character something that is just not a Middle Earth, Tolkien style name to it. Yeah, Razorfist did make a response to that video as well, I believe. And I didn't even bother watching it. The problem with the pronoun thing is that it starts with it's just the beginning, or you can ignore it. And then it does, yeah, sometimes it does create a slippery slope. I'm going to put that link in there if anybody wants to join in and talk about or jump in on the panel and join the feed and we'll talk. Plus, if someone's would mod out the pronouns, the other side would have a fit. Yes. And again, that's why I'm saying it's like they should be accepting of it if someone's going to mod out those pronouns because they're doing the same thing. Maybe their safety tool is not to have pronouns discussed. All right. And so that's their safety tool. That's their gatekeeping of their table and their gaming experience. Yeah, Michigan is not going to get away with that. See, Canada does not have freedom of speech. Michigan has to follow the U.S. Constitution. Now they could pass it very shortly, for a short period of time, and then it'll get overturned. I personally think that when states' governments pass laws that they know are in violation of the Bill of Rights, that it's a violation of the 10th Amendment as well as the first and the the 14th, the 12th, the 14th, whatever that come up in there, and so there should be a ramification for that, like a federal ramification for it. Like they lose federal funding for certain programs. That will certainly end that kind of stuff real fast. He has physics. Yeah, I'm trying to. I know I saw that really earlier on, and yeah, I mean the GM could literally just say, "No, I'm not going to allow that," and if the player rejects, that ruling, then well, you're going to have to leave, and you just send them packing. So maybe that's what you mean by physics. I have an X card as the GM. I am the absolute god of my universe, and I hold the banhammer. Yes, exactly. Propaints, definitely. The X card has become a mini game. Only on Twitter. On Twitter, it's absolutely a game. Yes. One of my players just had to roll up a character on Tuesday night. His first character died, and we were just still playing through the remainder of the combat round, and I hear over my speakers. I already hear the dice rolling. He was like, "Oh, I just rolled a 17." So he was, almost immediately rolling up a new character, at the time, and to me, that's the kind of player that you want at your table, one that quite literally rolls with the punches. We didn't number our sessions. We only had 3 sessions: last session, this session, the next session. That's nice. That's a good way to put it too. Hello, Facebook user. I never had it happen when people would have wanted one. The closest I've come to it is that one player I described who wanted to be in the spotlight, and he was starting to hem and haw, and literally actually broke down in tears on Discord one time because he felt that no one wanted his character there any longer. And that's when I pulled him aside and talked to him, and I was like, "Listen, this is how we can integrate it and do it." And then that's when he said, "I really don't feel like this is going to be a good fit." And I was like, I'm sorry to see you go. Have a, good luck in your search," and let him go. And I think it might have shocked him a little bit in realizing that no one begged him to stay. And that might have been hopefully a little check on his narcissism as well. Let's see. Also, it is important to not let one person dominate the game and not let the others have fun. Yes. You should try to mix it around as a game master. Hey, Meridor, one of my players. So, yes, it's good to mix it around, and I try to, give opportunities for my players to shine, in their moments, and I try to mix it around. My players, they each have their own like little unique things about them, other than just the class differences, but their personality differences and everything. And I sometimes will create the situation, in the moment, that I know that character is going to get involved. It's a technique that I learned as a teacher, of 26 plus years, when you want to get certain kids involved. And wow, I'm getting a huge storm here. Want to get kids involved. If I lose power, please understand, because that was just a huge gust of wind. Um, but anyway, um, yeah, it was something I just learned over the years on how to get students engaged without actually calling them directly out and saying, "Hey, what are you going to do in this situation? What's your answer to this question?" Um, but to try to pull the players in based on their characters, again, personalities or abilities as well. Yes, and and in con games, it's a little bit of a slower process, but when you have experienced players, it kind of shows. And I think you're always going to end up with that though at a convention table where some players are just there and they're just rolling and they're just listening and they're not very vocal. And then you will have the ones that do take the commanding lead. I mean, I think it's a very natural thing to take place. Sure. I'm sure that she's probably I'm assuming going to talk about her brother Ernie Gygax. I hope he's doing well. Or getting better. Um, I'm hoping it's not worse news than that. But yeah, I didn't know she had a channel. So yeah, if anything comes up, if you would, Vaughn, pop in if there's any big news about Ernie. I'd welcome it. Safety tools are also a symptom of immaturity in our society. We have overgrown children who are used to getting their way. Yes, and there again. There's another thing like extended adolescence syndrome or something like that, where people are in their early 30s and they're still behaving like they were when they were 16. It's a that's it. Hey, Ducato, how's it going? Yes, and there is again. There's another term that I'm not fully remembering what it was called, but it's like extended adolescence is what I'll call it now. If it was anywhere in like 2012 or so, it would have been in World of Darkness, where a lot of this stuff started coming from. No elves is in gatekeeping, just world design. Dragonlance didn't have orcs, so no half orcs. Yeah, but that's not how it would be looked at today, right? It would be called today as gatekeeping, right? Because some people associate certain races with certain identities. Do that with, hey, there's no tieflings in my game. All right. And you will immediately be told that you are just trying to gatekeep um, non-binary, blue-haired, blah 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 blah. All those things because that is the race that many of that disposition, let's say, are attracted to. I mean, it's they have gravitated to the tiefling for whatever reason, and eliminate bards. Say there's no bards in my game. It's not a playable character class, and again, that combination seems to have attracted a certain type of player to that character class and that character race. And trust me, the typical player of that, you don't want at your table. Certainly not an old school table. Okay. All right. Yeah. So that if 2012 is around, probably when you started getting those Powered by the Apocalypse and story games and that type. So yeah, you're probably correct there, Magnificent Devil. Um, Yeah, Vaughn, but I already put it in there. Oh, I probably didn't get it to you. Sorry about that. Um, yeah, I'm a behind. Sorry about that. The first time I came across that card was at an indie games on demand crowd at Origins back in 2013 and 14. Yeah, so it does go back that far. I see. I'm surprised. I didn't think it was until probably like 5 years after that. Like I didn't think it came out until like 5E. So that would have been the latter portion of 14 and probably more so 15. Yeah, let me try to get caught up. Okay. So Ernie is stable. Oh, that's good news. Yeah, so they're talking about it on Tenkar? Yeah. All right. Let me get caught up. Yes. All right. So let's see. Specific question. Oh, she'll be on Dungeon Delver channel in about 6 minutes. Okay. I should probably on it by now. I think I'm caught up now. All right. Well, again, I'm just glad to hear that it sounds like he's stable, and wish him the best of health, and hopefully he pulls through. Howdy, Takado. So I interviewed Ron Edwards a long time ago on my channel, probably almost 2 years ago or so, and I didn't get the impression that he was like a big proponent of this kind of stuff. I'd have to go back and look at that interview that I did with him. I interviewed him for like close to 2 hours. I forget what project he happened to have at the time, but he was just wanted to come on the show, and it was one of my first interviews of someone uh, who does develop games, and yeah, it's been a long time, and I just didn't get the impression that he would be the founding of that kind of a movement. Five seems to have made people forget that the DM gets to create their own world. Players seem to be, uh, if it is in the book, you must include it, or you're non-inclusive. Yeah. So Mirador, there was a time, I know you weren't with this particular group, but Cedric, if you remember Cedric from our group, Ivan, um, he was running a D&D Homes Edition game, and the a player was coming in, and it was a fairly young player, a teenager, was coming in and wanted to play a 5e um, character class and race combination. And he kept on saying, "Nope, this is a Homes edition. You can play like a bugbear or whatever because that was permissible in Homes, but that character class and race did not exist in the Homes edition." And the person was irate about it, and he offered him like 5 different options for a pre-gen character to play. He finally chose this one character and kind of claimed stomach issues like an hour in, and the person dropped out during the first session. And it was so obvious that just being told no was beyond what this player was able to deal with. And so that's why I like to bring up the fact that it is a form of gatekeeping that usually happens very early on, or hopefully early on, So GNS guy that made the term fantasy heartbreaker. Yeah, I'm not all that familiar with that term. And like I said, I don't remember from my interview with him if we really went into that, but it was a long time ago, so I'd have to double check and watch my own interview. That was complained with 3E as well, I guess so. Uh, what was Ron's game again? Sorcerer. I remember it existed, but not much about it made it unique. Um, Implicit social contract at a gaming table. Some of his orbiters turned it into explicit thing that people had to agree to. Yeah, I wouldn't. Um, they'll be on for a few hours. Well, yeah, I won't be on for a long, long, long time. So I may pop over in a little bit. Let's see. It had 2 or 3 supplements. It was pretty unremarkable system wise, but had a big dissertation on narrative in games. Yeah. Um, so anyway, let's see what other banners. So I already brought this up again. This was one of my other banners, and we're already beyond it. The modern dayism, which came from that guy's rant. Modern dayism and fucking pronouns in gaming. Um, Modern dayism was an interesting term, though. I really like that, that term that he used, and I think we were already kind of hitting on that with some of the comments that this is really just something of the past decade. Let's say if we do use that 2012, to 2014 range, so then this really is only a more modern, like the last decade or so of gaming, when we see this hyper focus on bringing modern sensibilities to everyone's table, because you're not allowed to be excluded from that, and yeah, bringing up modernity is and remember when how much heat Tracy Hickman took when he showed a picture of the characters of Critical Role and then the characters of Dragonlance next to it, and he just wrote embrace tradition and reject modernity, and people took that as an attack, like a racist attack, because there were tieflings and other kind of creatures, and everyone and the Dragonlance thing are white males and females, although some were elves and some were dwarves and some were Kender. That didn't count as separate species. Let's say they were seen as the same race, in comparison to having these tieflings and drow and such. So um, yeah, reimagined for a modern audience, which is basically the financial suicide of any project, right? They all fail. Whether it's a movie, whether it's a TV show or a streaming show or video game or role playing game, they all fail when they do that, when they reimagine for a modern audience. It is absolutely a failure, and it's not how 5e was introduced. As 5e was introduced as an improvement on 4e. It was not introduced as a reimagining of Dungeons and Dragons for a modern audience. Now, it might have included some newer, like innovative game mechanics to it, but that's not the way that modern audience is actually looked at. That's a more of a sociologist term than it is a game designer term or a movie creator's term or whatever. So it's modern audience has a connotation that it represents modern sensibilities. Um, and so it's not because we all might watch or play the same game, but we're not all coming to it with the same set of sensibilities to it because we're all, older or younger or different or, whatever. So there isn't some monolithic sensibilities that they seem to believe that there is. Again, I have a thunderstorm rolling through, so if I do lose power, um, have a great night, everybody. Well, we'll see how this goes. And let me go back to my initial idea of our safety tools and gatekeeping the essentially the same thing. And I think that they are. I think that it's a tool that's serving both the safety of the player and the safety of the table. I think that the safety of the table is actually more important because the safety of the table is more likely to be more inclusive of more players at the table than a safety tool is, because that's really only looking to protect one individual player for the most part. And so, I think that if you can only have one, and I'll leave that like a poll question, right? If you can only have one of the two, or you have to have one of the two, which of the two would you take? All right. So I'm certainly on the gatekeeping side. All right. And I think most of my viewers might lean towards that same way. But hey, if you want to make a case, you're certainly welcome to do so. And I'd love to chat that out with you. So, hey, Judd, good to see you. And yeah, I would say that if I were at a convention and they said you either have to use this tool, you have to either use safety tools or gatekeeping at your table, I would take gatekeeping every time. Because that way I can, I can ensure that my table is going to run the way that I'm looking for it to run. And the players that want to run in that style are going to be safe from the play styles that they might not want at their table. So that's why I say they're both the same thing. It's just one is more geared towards protecting an individual, and the other is meant to gear towards to protect the entire table, potentially from an individual that is there to disrupt or may disrupt. Might not even be their intention to disrupt, but just their very actions and their play style is disruptive. And I would say the same thing for like people that are, I had this recent thing. I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3, and I was like, hey, let me try the multiplayer for once. And I jumped into a group, finally got in, and the rest of the party members aren't even looking to advance through the initial scenario that you were in. And one guy was just pushing everybody, which didn't count as an attack or anything like that. I don't understand why he was just pushing everybody instead of actually looking to run the adventure through that starting sequence. And then probably about 10 or 15 minutes in, the server was shut down. The person shut down the game, and then you got put back to the starter screen and everything. I was like, wow, if you're going to be so dependent on the creator of the room, I guess, to actually be there to play the game, holy cow, is that a bad setup? I mean, that's a really, really bad setup. And if, you know, even a virtual tabletop doesn't function that way. Like Roll20, I've been kicked out of Roll20 for whatever, or had to refresh mine, and it doesn't kick the rest of my players out. So that's a really, really bad design that they have for their multiplayer. If one player can essentially just prevent everybody else from playing, I don't know. You'd have to do it with players you know. It's certainly not something where you could pick up an ad hoc group. Not at all. If someone tries to steamroll over the DM and the DM is just trying to be gracious host and hang with friends, the disrupting person might shut down the whole game. Yeah, and that's why they need to be ejected very, very quickly. If a GM posts the game house rules when creating the game, people should be adult enough to understand and look for another game. If it offends you, instead of trying to join and push the game change. Yeah, absolutely, Mirador. And as one of my players, I mean, that like at one point I was saying I didn't want any bards, and when Kelly really did push that he really wanted to play a bard, all right, I said, okay, fine, you can play a bard. And he went through all the freaking steps to do it. It's no easy task in AD&D First Edition to become a bard. And it wasn't a, I think that in the end, it's turned out that his character is less effective than he would have been if he remained a ranger. But hey, that was his choice and such, and I don't think that he made the case for the class, with just the way the class is designed for AD&D First Edition. So yeah, I think that ultimately he cost his character probably a level or so in experience points just to be that. And I don't see it as effective as it would have been if he just remained a ranger. Yeah. There's no converting others at a game master's table. Like, the game master might try to convert people to a game system. All right, and actually they should actually try to encourage players to try new game systems and everything, but not the other way around. People got to remember the game master, the person running games, is the limited commodity. Players are a dime a dozen. All right. People willing to run games are just such a much smaller pool of active members that game masters have to remember that we are that limited commodity, and don't undervalue the role that we play in bringing these games together. And it's why certain game systems like 5e is really struggling, because they have a dungeon master shortage. You don't hear about that in any other game system, where they have a dungeon master shortage. They might have a player shortage because people are trying to run such niche games that they're not getting the players to join in on. And that's a slightly different thing, but you can run a game with one or two players. You're stuck doing solo if you can't find a GM. All right. I mean, that's the bottom line. You're stuck to solo gaming then. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, that one player I had, I was like, I wish you luck. and finding the table that is going to, match your needs. Yeah, I crashed the server. Um, I was the fifth player to join in, and I appeared to be the only one, or fourth player to join in, and I appeared to be the only one actually looking to play the game. Everybody else was just either standing around, and like I said, the one guy was just running around pushing everybody. Mag, that is most YouTubers. All right, let's see. Mag. Some people believe that their job is to be activists and convert others. Um, most YouTubers, Diversity and Dragons, Shoner, Condor, Black Lodge Games, the and or Pundit. All right. Are they really converting anybody? I mean, and I try not to mention some of these people, like Diversity and Dragons. Are they really pushing any kind of gameplay? Um, I don't know. I think that they do more of the drama surrounding the hobby, and I don't catch enough of their streams other than that, that are really involved. I know he's running Castles and Crusades. So when he's running Castles and Crusades, is he pushing a certain gameplay style? That's what I would have to double check on. Um, as far as Condor, again, I don't see him, like, he gives gaming advice, I guess, that never really quite gets to the point for me that I was like, all right, this is something that's usable. I think it's more just aggravated, over, not attracting the wavelength that he thinks that he's entitled to. Black Lodge Games, I don't watch enough of their videos or their streams to really tell you about. The Basic Expert, same thing. I don't really see I don't really see where he's pushing a this is how you should play the game. Um, Pundit, wants you to buy his products, and you know, um, I don't think that he really pushes for a game style. Shauner definitely pushes for a certain game style. I just don't think that it's a game style that anyone really does, and he'll admit that too. He'll say, I know that 99% of the people are playing a different way, but that's not role playing. And I think he's wrong in that. But if he wants to put himself in that 1% category, and it's not a 1% as in this is the top 1%, it's just a 1%. The number of players that are actually playing that way is so small. And if you want to put yourself in such a small minority as that, then hey, you're welcome to do so, but it's not a viable gaming style. You're always going to struggle finding people willing to do it. I mean, it's very similar to like the Bro OSR, where they're like, oh, this 1-to-1 is sacrosanct. It is what the entire game is built around, and not to mention that it's not even true. Number one, but the fact is that very very few people can actually play that way. Just don't have the time. Um, to do that kind of a thing, or the willingness to do it either. I mean, who wants to be told that you can't play for the next 3 weeks unless you play a different character because your character is on a boat traveling 3 weeks? Um, oh, excuse me, 3 weeks in game time. And so you have to express that in 3 weeks of real time. It's absurd, absolutely absurd. It's not what it was meant to be. You're supposed to twist and you're supposed to twist and bend the game time to match the next session when you come together to play. So that's another thing that's just kind of weird. Um, yeah, and like I said, I don't, you know, shitting on other YouTubers, like I don't really do that. So I'm not interested in that. Um, oh, so he's running Dragonbane now. Let's see. Let me see who that's calling me. Hold on. Sorry about that. No, that was nobody. I was just checking. We have such a huge thunderstorm rolling through here. I thought perhaps it was my wife calling. Let's see. Mad DD as a GM can boring. um, yeah, I'm not sure. I've never watched their live stream, so I don't know. At least their gameplay. Yeah, most live streams, even the exciting ones or the interesting ones, the professional ones, it's hard to watch Critical Role. I mean, to watch it for like 3 hours long. I mean, if I have 3 hours to watch somebody play, I'd rather just spend that 3 hours running something or online chatting on a stream. Which reminds me, if anybody wants to join in, here is the link if you want to join in and talk. And I also left it, I thought, pinned on top. If you want to jump in, you're welcome to do so. So is modern deism gatekeeping or just cancel culture? Gatekeeping in the past was for game coherence at the table, coherency at the table, but gatekeeping now is about equity. No, I think safety tools is being used as an equity tool. Gatekeeping is rejected by modern deism, and so you know the yelling out against modern deism is a form of gatekeeping. So yeah, so let's see. A while back, you mentioned wanting to organize several different games on your Discord. How's that organized play going? Well, I have, like, I just changed my work hours and days and such. So I am looking to get a second session of gaming going sometime during the week. And I'm always open for now I'm Eastern time, so I'm always open for either one shots or other game sessions going during the morning hours. So let's say from like 9 or 10, 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. Eastern time until 12 or 1 o'clock ish. I have to leave for work at 1 o'clock on certain days. That'll be Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So my mornings are always open. So if you want, if you want to jump in on anything during the mornings Eastern time, you're certainly welcome to do so. And I can run something. I'm looking to get a regular, possibly a Friday night game going at 7 p.m. on Friday nights. So that'll be something that I'm opening up. It'll probably be either Castles and Crusades, or it might be something else entirely. So yeah, just drop me a line on my Discord channel if you're looking to join anything. And that's the best way. I know I really do have to advertise my Discord channel a lot more than I have been doing, and I am going to do that this very moment. So let me just bring up that invite link really fast. It's taking 100 years to boot up, and yes, I will. Put this up. So this is my Discord channel, and this link will be good for 7 days. So any of you are welcome to join in, and then I will sort you out to, whether you're a player or just somebody that's coming on. If you want to jump in on any one of the campaigns going there, if you want to run a campaign on that channel, then just touch bases with me, and we will. I'll set you up with your own separate channel, both a chat and or a voice and a text for you to run, and you can do that as well. So yeah, there's the Discord. You're all welcome to join. And yeah, I don't push that Discord channel enough. There's probably close to like 200 members on there, and it really should be more matched up with how many people are on my YouTube channel. And that would be great. And that's the other thing. I don't push, hard enough, I guess, on, subbing to my channel. I get plenty of people that come on through, but I certainly welcome you to subscribe and leave your comments, as many of you have been and such. But if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing, and like the videos and share them and do all of that kind of stuff, because the algorithm does help. Chair stream. And he's back. I don't understand. Let's see. So, yes, I'm back. Sorry. Oh, that's what you're talking about. Let's see. Back to gatekeeping. Gatekeeping is when you aren't allowed to play in someone's game. Cancel culture is when you are deplatformed and fired from your job because someone didn't like your game. Yeah, and that's a big difference between the two. Is that one is just saying that you're not a good fit for my table. Cancel culture is your table is not fit for the hobby. All right, so you should see the difference there. Is that one is basically kicking you out of something that they have no authority over. All right. But you always have control and authority over your own table. And so there is no equal between gatekeeping and cancel culture. They're not on equal terms with one another. There's, one is far more negative than the other. So that's a big difference between the two. Modern dayism is taking modern day sensibilities and inserting them into gaming culture that has been around for 50 years. And it's the demand that those of us who have been around for almost 50 years in this hobby conform to modern day sensibilities, rather than those modern players coming in and accepting where the hobby was currently at, instead of trying to move it towards something that is, of their taste. They they want to come in and they don't want to create their own space. and then allow people, it goes back to this Twitter exchange that I had with somebody over a year ago, and I put up this video that was huge. I mean, it was a big video, tons and tons of hits and responses and everything, where the guy was basically arguing that no, our intent was to come in here and to change the way that you play the game, and then too many of our group of anti OSR or whatever they were, however they were describing themselves, they said, well, you should go off and make your own space. And so when many of the OSR people did that, and they went over and they made their own spaces. We made our own Discord servers, we made our own Facebook communities, we made our own this and that and everything, and we were fine. We were playing at our own tables and enjoying our own groups and everything. And then they complained again, saying, oh, no, you can't play that way. We don't want to allow that to happen. And so they tried to infiltrate the OSR. And then they were upset because they could not move the OSR in their direction because the OSR had no head. The guy literally lamented that there is no head of the OSR, so there's no way to control one element and drag all the rest along with it. The OSR is too fragmented for that, and that's a positive thing, is that it can't be taken over and controlled that way. And that's what they hate the most about it, is that they're unable to exert their will. And it is a control that they're trying to exert here. It's not we want to do what's good for the hobby. No, they want to do what's good for them gaining control over it, and then they'll destroy it and move on because that's what they do. So, again, gatekeeping and cancel culture. Cancel culture is an absolute negative, and it's a blight on the hobby. Whereas gatekeeping is a necessity to keep those kinds of individuals away from your table. So I would never say that gatekeeping is a negative when you have cancel culture looming. Gatekeeping is a necessity. Now, your safety tools is oftentimes misunderstood or misused or whatever. But safety tools is more on par with gatekeeping, in that a safety tool is meant to allow the individual to feel comfortable, but that should never be done at the expense of the rest of the table. So I would still put gatekeeping as more important than safety tools, because when you protect your table, and that includes the bulk of your players at your table, when you protect them from outside interferences, you're doing more to promote the hobby, because you're creating a better atmosphere, at your own table. I don't care what somebody else does at their table. That's their business. All right. But those on the other side of that argument, they do care what's happening at other people's tables. They want other people's tables to emulate what they're doing. And they want that control. Yeah, modern dayism. Yeah, I don't even know if that's a word yet. So, but that's that's how it was said. So that's how I wrote it. Especially if those sensibilities are not sensible. Yes, if they're, again, if I'm running Demon Queen of the Web Pits and you're afraid of spiders, guess which module you shouldn't be sitting through, during the game. Have your character go off for, 3 months while they go visit their parents, and take a break from the game and come back when we're done. All right, I'm not going to alter not that I would ever run a module like that, like straight through, like complete, done, that way, but run raw, let's say. But the point is that if you're that disturbed by spiders, and you're an adult, it's not the game that you should be playing. Yes, modern deism is far left extremism. Call it what it is. Yeah, it is, but um, it's the it's the it's the type of far left extremism. It's a little bit more descriptive of exactly uh, what the left extremism is. Is the X card really a safety tool? It seems more like I want to control the GM. No, it's not a safety tool. You're exactly right. It's not a safety tool. It is a disruptive tool that that allows it to be easily misused. And if you actually, like, I did a video like a year and a half ago or so when Monty Cook came out with their consent in gaming pamphlet, and I broke that thing down. All right. And I went through it step by step and showed each individual thing. I literally spent it was almost an hour, I believe, breaking that whole thing down and pointing out the missteps of what they were putting out there and how each one could be abused, and the DM would have no control over it based on what was written by Monty Cook. That it was just designed to disrupt the game, and the only way that you could the only way you could stop it as a game master is just end. We're ending this session, and I would disband every player and just bring back the ones that I knew we could start and just pick up where we left off without that player. I would never allow an X card at my table. All right, not ever, because it just defies the choices of everybody else at the table. It is, as I said in that video, it is the tyranny of the one. All right. It allows one individual without explanation of what they had an issue with. And again, that was a major thing that I kept on pointing to in Monty Cook's, pamphlet that they had, that they didn't have to explain themselves. All they had to do was say, I feel uncomfortable with this, and you were supposed to stop. And you weren't allowed to ask them what's the issue. They didn't have to tell you what the issue was. You were supposed to just guess and jump forward. And then if it came up again, then you not only had to stop, guess, jump forward, but then everybody at the table had to apologize to the player for that happening. And it was like, what are you apologizing for? You don't even know what the issue was. It was the most absurd thing I've ever read. All right. And it really, anything coming out of, now I know Monty Cook himself probably didn't write this, but it came under his name. It came under his thing. There were two other authors, really associated with it. And I was like, the fact that they produced that made it clear to me that I would never purchase anything put out by Monty Cook Games. All right. Because they signed off on that. They signed off on that nonsense. I would never touch one of his games. I just recently read something, where I would never touch a Goodman Games, game anymore. DCC just changed one of their things in their 10th printing. They removed all of the acknowledgments of all of the previous creators that they acknowledged as being, the legends and creators of, of Dungeons and Dragons and such, and some of the the great and other people beyond just Dungeons and Dragons, but a lot of people from the not the DM's Guild, the other one, Bledsaw, and but really even like Paul Jacques, which he's now a she, uses I forget then Janelle, I think Janelle Jacques, but removed all their names from it. And I think Jacques actually still works for Goodman Games, so it's like, all right, they removed even her name from it as well, and I'm like, that's crazy. It's like, so I wouldn't touch any of their stuff anymore either. Basically just ends it for me. Yes, yeah. What did they use that term? I remember that thing. There was a YouTube video of Socialist Conference where they can never discuss any subject because there were so many people using their safety tools to attack each other. It was hilarious. Absolutely. It was a point of personal inquiry or something like that they kept on raising. And then you weren't allowed to clap because some people had sensory sensitivities that, clapping disturbs them and triggers them. And, they weren't allowed to, they had to avoid every possible normal use of a pronoun when talking. It was a point of privilege, point of individual privilege. I would be like, no one has a privilege, to speak. It's a right to speak, and yeah, it was crazy. The most absurd thing, and they were totally locked. I was like, this is why you can't even run your own household um, under the terms of socialism. There has to be somebody that makes the final decision. If it doesn't work at the nuclear family level, it will not work at a governmental level. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, yeah, that's right. Hello, Derek, by the way. Yeah, I'm sorry for whatever I did. It didn't do. Yeah. Um, yeah, point of privilege. Yes, you guys stop using gendered language. Yes, that's what it was too. It was like, and hey, you guys is not a gendered language. It's commonplace. So, all righty. So let's see what else we have here, and I will check and see. Um, so I'm going to check your comments in 1 second more. Let's see. Okay. Oh, and I remember I had to do this one thing here. Um, I forgot to enable auto stop as well. So I had to put that in there. So let's see, Randy Smith. Hey, Randy, how's it going? I'm not sure who you can buy from in terms of corporate RPG companies considering that criterion. Um, well, you can buy from Troll Lord Games using that criterion. You can buy from let's see, Frog God Games does not get into that. You can buy from Necrotic Gnome using that criterion. There's quite a few. Primarily, Troll Lord Games is apolitical. They, or non-political. Let's say they say we're just here to create good games, or great games, and to play and run games. And they were, of course, attacked for that because, God forbid, a game company focuses on creating great games and just playing games. So that's that's an example that I would point to. Phenomenal game system, great people involved with it, tons and tons of content, um, great game system to play, and uh, and it's a modern game. It's still continuing to make new printings, and so I'm a huge fan of Troll Lord Games and what they do. I really like Frog God games. They do swords and wizardry, great format, and there's plenty of others out there. There are tons of others out there. If you go to the RPG site, which is the RPG Pundits message board, then they have a linked thread in there which categorizes green, yellow, red for companies, and if it's in the green, then it's pretty much focused on gaming. Yellow, they might delve into a little bit of the wokeness, but not excessively so. And then the red is to be avoided. And the red is, of course, Wizards of the Coast and Paizo and Evil Hat and games along, game systems along those lines and publishers along those lines that really do put the agenda ahead of making great gaming content. Yes. Yes, Ryan, they definitely do. I mean, and like I said, I had that one exchange with that person on Twitter over a year and a half ago, and he wasn't shy about admitting it. I mean, he basically said, "No, we came in here trying to trying to destroy the OSR from within, but in order to do that, you need to have a head, and since we could not find a head." This doesn't work, and so they started to abandon it. That's when they tried to do that sword dreams thing, and that miserably failed. And they tried to create their own woke version of the OSR, and that took off like a Led Zeppelin. And not the real analogy of Led Zeppelin, which actually was successful beyond being a Led Zeppelin. And then they took a new tactic up, and that was, well, we can get them if they don't use these safety tools at conventions and in and on uh, virtual tabletops where we disagree with them, then we'll get them barred from there. And so they won't be able to run at conventions, and they won't be able to run on Roll20, or they had less success, I think, with Foundry. But there's certain games you can't run on Roll20. They'll report it and it'll get taken down. So they do wield, you know, uh, a decent amount of power with those corporations that will bend the knee to them. And so now they've been less successful as time has gone on because those companies have lost so much money along the way. But it is still something that needs to continue to be pushed back on. It's too bad about MCG. So MCG is, I'm not sure. Paizo, I know, and Cobalt Press. Yeah, Cobalt Press is another one that has kind of fallen to the, fallen to the wokeness, let's say. I don't know who MCG is. Is that's not? Is that Matt Koval? I think he uses. Monty Cook. Um, Yeah, I don't believe Matt Koval is necessarily woke, although um, he's not going to be OSR conservative either. That reminds me of Khrushchev explaining to the Secretary of Agriculture, Edward Taft Benson, how communism would corrupt America and destroy it from within. Well, yeah, you know what? He was, yeah, a certain form of, Marxism, social Marxism is, yeah, Monte Cook Games. Yeah, like I said, I mean, I wouldn't touch his stuff, um, after that. DM is a comic guy, not a gamer. He loves 4E. Um, you know, I never played 4E. 4E has often been described as an MMO on paper, and if you like the way that MMOs play, and I've heard that some aspects of 4E are actually better than how they're portrayed. So I do have 4E. I've never looked through the books yet. I just got them to complete the full run, and then I got rid of my 5E. I gave it away, so maybe I'll take a look at 4E and see if it's worth me even holding on to. But for the most part, it's those that refuse to let go that 4E as a game design was not a great system. So, I mean, your two biggest 4E people are Christopher Perkins and Jeremy Crawford. I mean, from what I understand, they still run Christopher Perkins' 4E campaign, never stopped, and they've never come out openly saying, "Hey, you know what? That was a mistake of a system. It was not, received." It was not a market winner, and you know, the 5E to them, they've tried to make it more closer to 4E than once I'm slipping his name is slipping me now. Um, Once the other guy was removed and replaced, it'll come to me in a few minutes. Um, I think he was the last of the Gygaxian game designers once he was removed. And the rest are, these more modern day gamers. 4 is not as bad as tactical skirmish game, but it's not really D&D. Yeah, well, a lot of people say that 3.5 isn't really D&D either. A lot really do break away from it. I mean, Gary Gygax said second edition wasn't 3D, wasn't D&D. I paid $40 for the set and the sleeve. So I think that was a pretty fair price for just research copies of it. Loved 4E. Major downside, it was called D&D. It's Chainmail 2.0. Heavy on tactical combat. Grew up on miniatures, so it fit nicely. Yeah, I mean, I've heard some positive things. Merles, thank you. Merle's a more Gygaxian than he at least understood what Dungeons and Dragons was. So he was more Gygaxian than Perkins or Crawford. Arrested Development. All right, that's a long way off from when I was asking it. I still don't think that's the term that's used for it today. But yes, it is called Arrested Development when someone is still acting like a teenager in their young adult and even more adult years. 34-year olds, and hey, I've played MMOs with someone who was 66 at the time, and that was almost 20 years ago, and he was a child. I mean, he was one of the most petulant child players you'd ever come across, and that was going back to 2002. But yeah, Arrested Development comes in. Yeah, Peter Pan syndrome is another, and it really gets back to the, never having heard the word no, and they absolutely blow a gasket when they're finally told no, that they're just not used to dealing with that. So, all right. So we are coming up on the 2 hour mark. And so getting back to my original premise here of safety tools and gatekeeping are the two sides of the same coin. I think that it's important for us to start looking at this and to start saying, hey, you know what, this is this is something that we need to keep on pushing. We need to keep on pushing that, gatekeeping is meant to keep the table safe from those gameplay styles or gaming philosophy or even personal preferences that are going to disrupt your table. And so it is a safety tool for the entire table, and should be treated as such. So that if you're a proponent of safety tools and say every table should have safety tools, then to be intellectually honest, you should be saying that every table should exercise a certain element of gatekeeping in order to defend itself from outside influences and just player actions at your table that are going to be disruptive. These people wouldn't say anything, negative about saying, oh, well, I'm going to keep, anyone who supported Trump off my table. That's fine. That's acceptable. That's not even gatekeeping. That's just common sense. It was like, we're going to say the same thing about anyone bringing any kind of politics to our table. It's like, I don't care what your politics are. At the table, your politics are what's going on in Greyhawk, for your character's race and class, and what's your situation, and what is the town that you're in, what is the group that you're in, and that is the entire thing that we're trying to engage in here. And it doesn't matter any of those other things. That is not important for gameplay. And if that's what you need to feel that you have some kind of a sense of belonging or something, it doesn't belong at this table. And I hope that you find a place where you're going to be comfortable to play and enjoy yourself, but it's not the right fit here. And so no one should be afraid to say that. And, and that's the point that I want to put out there, that no one should be able to say that. Kale's primary abilities, we're playing him as an NPC. I'd have to double check OSR Night. Let me do that real fast and see. Yeah, this is actually my last free Thursday night before I start working Thursday nights. So I just wanted to get this live stream in. Let's see. Here we go. I'm going to tell you in a second. I'm going to jump in and I'm almost certain it was. I got to turn off this here. Can't have both going. Let's see, Kale. Where are you, Kale? So his Constitution, Strength, and Dexterity. So Con, Strength, and Dexterity in that order were all his primaries. Okay. So listen, everyone, I'm going to be wrapping this up, and I think it was a good discussion. We had quite a bit come on, and we are going to move in. I will check out that other stream and see um, how Ernie Gygax Jr. is going, and and you all have a great rest of your evening. Check around, see what other streams are, running along, and I will see all of you tomorrow. I am going to be putting up a video, making a return to AD&D Second Edition. I'm going to be covering timekeeping and movement in that system. So that'll be a fun one, talking about timekeeping. And I know it touches a little bit upon that, in-game and out-of-game timekeeping and such. So that'll be an interesting thing to talk about. And oh, they're all talking about changing to a different day. That'll be cool. I am free. OSR night, I am going to be free Friday nights specifically. So I'm still running my game Tuesday night. So I will be free Friday nights if you want to do something on Friday nights. If it can go to Friday, I'm great for that, for most of the time. Once a month, I might have a meeting Friday night, but if you alternate weeks, we'll be fine. If it hits the right weeks and such. All right, I am going to go. So good night, everyone. Night Mirador. L, as always, thanks for all the input and such. Everyone else, OSR, thanks for dropping in. Magnificent Devil, good to see you again. Judd, how's it going? Good to see you again. Randy, thanks for popping in. Paul, thanks for the comments. Let's see. Ryan, thanks for the talk about the Khrushchev era and such, and bringing us up to date on that, and thoughts on socialism. Let's see who else. Derek Mann, good to see you again. Have a good one. I'm just going through and giving everyone a shout out that has come in. Paul, again, thanks. And let's see, Facebook user, good to see you. And Judd, I'm pretty sure I called you out. Vaughn, thanks for giving me a heads up on Heidi Gygax and her stream, or whatever stream she's going to be on. She's going to be on that Decado. Good to see you as always. Be checking out your page in a minute. I think that's everybody. Oh, Bo Paints Minis. Thanks a lot, Bo, for popping in. Rational Ginger, as always, good to see you again. And almost through everybody. Big Vic. Hey, Big Vic. It's been a while. Good to see you. Safety tools are for the week. I missed that thing. Sorry to have missed that, Big Vic. See, I like doing these recaps here. See who was in and giving shout outs to everyone that popped in. And that is back to the beginning. And let me go all the way to the end for the last one. Yeah, as always, Randy, and thanks for popping in. All right, everyone, have a great night. Take care. Have a good upcoming weekend. And as always, I look forward to seeing you on the gaming screen sometime soon. If you haven't had a chance to hit that Discord server, you can pop in and check out the Discord server, and maybe we could set up some gaming there as well. So OSR night, definitely let me know on there when if you guys are able to move your game to Friday nights, then I'll certainly be open to do that. All right, everyone, have a good night. Take care.